Okay, everybody, welcome back to Ending the Stigma, a path to recovery. I am Fredd Carroll, and with us, as always, is Scott H. Silverman, crisis coach, family navigator, author, father, husband, brother, son, nephew. What else? What am uncle? I'm sure you're an uncle, right?
Yeah, a little overweight too. Yeah,
Over,
I'm an uncle. I,
overweight.
I got a few nieces and nephews. Yeah,
Are they all over? Your family spread out all over because you're a you're a normal, you're a natural Californian, right?
natural. Yeah, yeah, natural. And now I was a native. Yeah, I was born here in San Diego.
Native.
Family's here. I got a daughter in L.A. I've got my sister over in where is she? Temecula, and I have another sister back in New York, and her kids are back there. So we're on both coasts.
Well, good. Because I know
Yeah,
you traveled east a lot when you were working, right? With your family business.
as far as I can remember, Fred, we've had this
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah.
I drank on the plane a lot. So yeah, I used to go with my dad when we were, had a fashion clothing business, but that was really not my role. So I only went when there was big things going on. But yeah, I traveled to the East Coast a lot, went to LA a lot. And, I'm not a great traveler. We have a big trip coming up here in September, but we'll be driving. And that's assuming we're able to do it, not knowing what's going on
Right.
with the new
Was
COVID.
your father a big drinker?
No,
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 not at
he,
all.
He was a teetotaler. So was my mom. They never really, got into stuff like that. I can remember once being in New York and I had a joint in a hotel and I lit it up and I asked my dad if he wanted something. He goes, I've read it'll make me go to sleep. I go, but you've been complaining you haven't been sleeping well. He goes, well, I don't want to start something now that I'm not going to be able to finish later. I said, okay. So
Right. Yeah, that's
he understood. He goes, you're a big boy. You do what you got to do. We had a
yeah.
great relationship.
So tell me what you've been doing while we are away, when we're not together. What have you been doing on during the days and stuff there? What do
Well,
you
Fred, we're only really together about a half an hour to 45 minutes a week. So a couple
So
things.
what are you doing the other
Sleeping, I
200 and
eating, I actually have been riding my bike. I promised I was going to get out there and I've been getting out there. I went for a ride today. I have one of those bikes. I had a little motor put on my front wheel. And today I took my bike on the back of my rig and I went over to Coronado, which is really a flat area, nice area to ride. And I get my bike off my rig and the friggin' battery was dead on my bike, which I used, power assist pedaling. The e-bikes, they call them electronic bikes. So it's such a huge, big growth industry right now. So if you all live in different parts of the country and you're enjoying that kind of riding, let us know. I don't know much about it, but I've learned a lot, and it's a great way to, especially at my age, to kind of get out there and have that support when you're riding. So I've been doing that. I've also been working really hard this week. Confidential Recovery, our treatment program I work with, founded about 8 years ago, work with professionals. And we've been working really hard the last couple of years to develop a veterans program here in San Diego. And San Diego is the third largest. It's the second or third largest. No, I can't really seem to get a consistent answer, but number two, number three of veteran populations in the country. And it's really nice to be able to serve veterans. They're a population that, have done so much for us as a country globally. And, they seem to struggle quite a bit with behavioral health issues and substance use disorder. And, we're one of the few around the country that gets to, provide that substance use disorder treatment, behavioral health, dealing with PTSD, PTS, I like to call it. I don't like putting the word disorder on things. I think it just kind of helps stigmatize it even worse. So I've been busy with that, and we're trying to raise the bar, improve the curriculum. And then the next 2 months, we're going to start bringing family members in to start having family groups, working with significant others, family reunification, conflict resolution, dealing with, maybe some potential domestic issues that take place in any family. But most people have seen it this last year, the escalation of everything. Fred, you and I were talking before we started the show. In the news yesterday was an 8-year-old that was taken to an emergency department for a mental health issue. Not a broken arm or a sprained wrist or a stubbed toe. And when you think about that, 8 years old, having a mental health episode and having to go to the emergency room, because either A, wherever they were, they had no other choice, or they weren't sure what was going on, and that's what was happening. And we're seeing a lot more of it. And part of what's really frustrating me this week is, as you and I were talking earlier, is watching some of our leaders in our country, go at it with each other publicly. I mean, just an example is the president of the United States and the governor of Florida. It's like they're listening to them. It's like they're in the sandbox. I think the president's saying, I believe in that philosophy: lead, follow, or get out of the way. And the president was kind of shooting one over the bow, so to speak, with the governor, and the governor pushes back and says, "Look, this is my house. Don't come to my house." It's like, what? I mean, and the decisions some people are making right now, and watching these numbers about the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated, and the percentage of people that are getting this new variant, that aren't vaccinated, and how, kids are getting, put into hospitals. And just on the news early this morning, a 16-year-old died because of COVID in Florida. Is that the governor's fault? No, I don't think so. But I haven't heard the story about the family, but according to science, if you get vaccinated, this new variant will not kill you. It may make you sick. But this is, I think, one of the youngest people, and this is the second or third wave of this, COVID that's going on right now, and school's going to start again. And then what's that big Harley Davidson rallies going on again this year, and that was a major spreader last year.
Well, my brother is outside right now packing his motorcycle up to head out to Sturgis. Him and all his biker buddies are going to Sturgis.
Yeah.
And most of them are vaccinated, I believe. Of course, I don't ask or whatever. And I don't get involved in stuff like that. That's his life. He's allowed to drive anywhere he wants and stuff. Is it the smartest thing? It's not for me. I don't want to be around that many people. But I get it. I mean, people just want to live. They want to get out there and live. But do you want to die living? I don't.
Well, even if, and I think the number is high at 70%. Let's assume, I think, what do they have? 500,000 people there last year, maybe more.
I think he told me it expands over to 1 million. Okay, I bet you less people probably went last year. That's all.
Well, they had a pretty good turnout and a huge spreader afterwards. But let's just assume, for the sake of assumption, there's 750,000 people that are going to come through there. And let's just say, conservatively, 60% have been vaccinated. That means about 300,000 people haven't been. So, and they're going to be, they're together on the streets. There are, a lot of people in a very small confined area, even though it's outdoors. But according to the science, the spreader, where they say if you can smell a cigarette 25 feet away from you, that's the kind of spreading this new variant does. Meaning that if someone's 25 feet away and they're carrying it, they can project it out 25 feet, or it gets projected out. And God forbid there's any wind or other things going on, or motorcycles moving around all over the place. It just sounds, by all means, enjoy your life. But if you're potentially at risk or you've got risk factors, this is everything we talk about all the time with this reducing the stigma is education and being informed. I was on a big call yesterday with our local DA and a DEA guy I know really well. And he talks about prevention, and so does the district attorney. We're talking about prevention. And it seems like the word prevention is almost like, it's like education. People just don't want to hear it, or it just kind of bounces off. And so I've changed the word to be informed. Just make informed decisions. There's nothing wrong with living your life. And I know it's frustrating. And, I just heard today that all the student loan payments, I guess, are going to be postponed till January now. Both my kids have student loans, so that's good news for them. And, I understand the jobs report was pretty positive, the outcome of that. But if businesses have to shut back down because more people have gotten this infection, it just defeats the purpose of all the, the hard work that everyone who is compliant or is supposedly believing that they're doing the right thing is doing the right thing. And there are those who keep pushing back. I don't want to. Look, my attitude is this: it's like a drunk driver. If you drink and drive, to me, and you're on the road and I'm on the road, you're putting my life at risk. I really resent that. You want to drink at home and you want to knock yourself out and you want to smoke marijuana and you want to take edibles and my God, if you even want to do heroin, that's your choice. If you're making an informed decision and you know it could be harmful and poisonous or kill you, that's your choice. But if you get behind a wheel, that pisses me off. Why would you do that to me or my family or people you know or people you love? That's where I draw the line. That's why I'm so perplexed by watching legislative leaders. It's almost like they get paid to argue, or they get paid to fight with each other, or they get paid to not want to support a common ground. It's almost like we have to teach a whole new language to everybody so we can understand each other when we're talking.
Yeah, and a lot of it too, people are excuse me. People are seeing I guess what I'm trying to say is they're getting misinformation from people that aren't qualified to give information, but yet we have a freedom to type anything we want. And people like my daughter's age, in the 20s and stuff, they're seeing all these TikTok stuff from the good, the bad, the right, the wrong. And, technically we don't know. We can't say we're 100% right, but we could say, what I was telling my daughter was, I cannot guarantee that the shot itself is going to work, but I could fairly guarantee you that the shot itself is not going to kill you itself. That's not going to kill you. COVID will, so if it works, great. And it seems to be working for the most part, but get the shot. You got all these other vaccinations and nobody's out there screaming, no more polio, no more, or anything like that. They had no problem getting those. And it always comes down to, well, they haven't done enough research on this. They haven't done enough research. And, well, you got to start somewhere. And that's what science is. People are wondering about the flip-flop, how they're flipping from one thing to the other. Well, that's science. Science collects data, they collect the facts, and then they alter to the need. That's what science is. And people just don't accept it anymore. And I think, sadly, social media has harmed more than it's helped.
Right. Well, and I had an argument with somebody today, and they're quoting all this stuff. And I said, I appreciate anybody else's opinion, everyone else's opinion. But when someone is quoting, like you said, somebody who came off a rant look, let's take, what's his name? The guy, My Pillow guy. I mean, he is totally convinced, claims he has data, showed these pieces of paper or on the computer screen with a bunch of numbers. He's having a big event in the middle of August, I think, where people can come, and he's offering somebody $5 million to prove him wrong. And, I guess he and Fox separated, Fox and he separated. And at the end of the day, when you think about what he's talking about, he has been challenged at every level. Science, inspectors, Homeland Security people, everyone has said that China did not get into our computer system and change the outcome of the election. Now, let's just say, for the sake of assumption, that he may be onto something, but the fact that he can't prove it yet, and he says he can, so we're all waiting for that. But in the meantime, while he's doing that, to your point, there are people out there going, he's right. Well, if he's right, is there another right? I believe there's three kinds of truth: yours, mine, and the truth.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's like, look what it took to get seatbelts in cars. Look what it took for the tobacco industry to be shut down and put that warning on. It was in the late 70s, but they knew about it supposedly back in the early 60s. They had science that showed that it was causing throat cancer and oral cancer. But they didn't get the warning out to everybody until it was too late. And there are people who are experts in the field today that say marijuana and the legalization of marijuana, not the legalization, but the consumption of it, which will take place at a higher rate once it's legalized, is going to make, a huge situation similar to what happened in the tobacco industry. That's what all the experts are forecasting. And, if it's legal and people want to do it, again, you do that in your own home. But if you're leaving edibles on the coffee table and your infant children are consuming that and they're expiring, should you be charged with involuntary manslaughter for being a
Yeah.
negligent parent? I mean, so just be informed, make smart decisions, and know. I know because I'm a guy who used to drink and I drive, and I think I was okay until I learned I wasn't. And I don't know what the easy answer is here, but I believe that if we're going to lean on the government to guide us, they have got to do a better job of getting their stuff together. And my opinion is, especially when it comes to overdosing, I'm not going to rely on the government. I mean, I'm watching our city with homelessness and our legislative leaders and our mayor, and we've got a governor that's potentially going to be, taken out of his seat through a vote, impeached. I don't know if impeached the word, but he's recalled. Gavin Newsom. So, and he's one of 4 governors, I guess, across the country right now that are going through some major issues. And I remember, what was it? Al Franken. He resigned as a congressman when it came out that he was doing some, inappropriate things. Were they bad things? They were inappropriate for someone in that level of leadership. So he stepped down. He stepped down quickly, and I'm sure it was justified, and he needed to go, and he had to start his life over again. I don't know what's going on with Cuomo. I don't have enough facts to even judge. But at some point, if 11 women came out with these testimonials and stories and facts in the investigation, then should he step down? If the facts are true, and so far every indication is they have, and everyone that can is calling for him to resign.
Yeah, and that's where social media has caught up to these guys. Like, I think in 2016 he put a quote out there about sexual harassment is 100%. You have to step away. You have, he basically buried himself with a post on Twitter from 4 years ago. But listen, this sexual harassment's becoming a big thing. And I'm glad it is because, and I'm sure you are, I have daughters and I want them to be happy. I want them to live. I want them to have the same opportunities as the next person. And I love that they're protecting themselves now. These women are coming forward, and that's part of our show, Ending the Stigma. And that's a stigma. Being a woman used to be a stigma. We would stigmatize it by saying they're less, basically that's what it came to. They can't do this job. They can't do that. They can't, all this stuff. And I'm glad that they're coming forward without shame, saying, listen, yeah, I was involved in this and he shouldn't have been. I was the kid. He was the person in charge. And I think he's got to be guilty of something. If they found guilt, they found guilt. There's reasons for the court systems and stuff. And I think he's just burying himself more and more. But New York is such a big state, and he needs to get out because there's bigger things going on. And now he's becoming the focal point instead of the homelessness, instead of the people with this rent that's due and stuff and can't pay the bills.
Look at the gun violence in New York City. And if I'm not mistaken, New York City is one of the most difficult places on this planet to get a weapon. And the shootings, there was a shooting the other night where 10 people were shot, and 2 of the assailants were picked up by their buddies who were on scooters, to get out of there. So the level of blatancy of what's taking place, and crime's up across the country right now, especially violent crime, which is kind of unusual. But again, I think the pandemic has put people in a position where, and look, luckily renters are going to get a bit of a moratorium, I guess, through October now. But, look, landlords have to pay the bank. So hopefully the landlords are going to get a relief as well, as long as tenants are going to get a relief. So that keeps the food chain moving along. It is amazing when you take a look at the severity of every layer right now. Of course, schools are starting back, and this whole mask issue has come back up again. And, you look at Florida, and it's just, and the thing is this, they're not even sitting in the room discussing it. They're getting on, and like you said, in front of the camera, on social media, taking a political position. And I'm not saying this side or that side, whoever, whatever side it is. And to fight these kind of battles in front of the media is not a good thing because your ego gets involved, control gets involved. And then all of a sudden, whether you're right or you believe you're right, you're not going to stop and listen to somebody else if there's an opportunity for change or learning opportunity. So what happens is, the young people are going to be impacted by this. The teachers are going to have a difficult time with it. And most industries right now across the country are having a hard time finding people to go to work. And the people that are at work are probably, everywhere I seem to go lately. I was at a little Italian deli the other day in our little Italy, and I asked this guy a question. And you would think I went to his home and robbed his TV. His reaction was, well, do you want a half a pound or a third a pound? And I said, okay, I'll take a half a pound. But his tone, but he had a mask on, so it was kind of hard for me to understand. But it's like, are you kidding me? All I'm trying to do is get a couple of things to go home and, feed my family. But it's, if I had been in a defensive mode and wanted to fight with somebody, it really is an unusual time. And I hope people are hugging their children right now and loving each other in a way as best they can. And I talked to one of the most wacko people I know last week, and they're starting to meditate. They go, do you ever meditate, Scott? I go, well, I try. I have a concentration issue with meditation, but anything, breathing, sitting still, turning off the TV, not listening to the news. I think our number one fan, Chris, said he says he's trying to avoid politics. And, and it's interesting. Let's shift over real quick over to homelessness. Venice Beach has just been inundated for the last couple of years. And the sheriff promised he's going to get everybody out. Well, lo and behold, in the last week, he basically got every homeless encampment. I'm talking about on the boardwalk, sitting on the sand where they had tents and wooden sheds and things people had made and been living in, as if it's, they're stakeholders and homesteaders, and they got to live there. And everything was, they gave warnings, they gave posted signs. I guess they made referrals, but a couple 100,000 people don't just evaporate. They went somewhere. And I know, based on the interviews I've seen and people interviewing, and I'm on a lot of different email lists, not everybody just left the city. They went somewhere, and they were still homeless when they went somewhere, and right, jobless. So it'll be interesting to see, because there was a tough love piece. They cleaned them up. The city came out. They got the trash picked up, big dumpsters, and got them out.
Right. And it doesn't mean, and he's not wrong for doing that. No. It's the solution still. All it is passing the buck, though. Like you're saying, is there's still 100,000 people that you moved somewhere, and then it's becoming somebody else's problem. So instead of solving the problem, which I don't know what the answer is necessarily, because we're not foolish, and we know some of them are homeless by their own issues, whether they don't want to work or they don't want to put in the time or the effort. But the majority of it is a mental health issue, and we'll loop in the drug addiction to that, but that's mental health related. And that's where I still believe that's still the solution to most of it. Let's say even half of the problems would go away if we could work first on mental health, get people's mental health better, give them more options for that. I will say this. I won't mention where I work or anything. People could find out on their own, I'm sure. But so I'm doing a lot of training on, computer training for my job and stuff. And this is a major corporation, but I see a change in major corporations. First of all, my company offers every employee, even the part-time, have access to mental health 24/7. Now, I'm sure a lot of companies do that. There's phone numbers, there's websites, they dedicate to it. They train them in certain things, but also they give part-time and full-time employees 5 days a year on top of everything else, on top of their sick days, on top of their vacation. You get 5 days for mental health days, and it's actually in there. And they're very good about stuff like that. I mean, I haven't been there long enough to see it implemented just because they put it on a piece of paper doesn't mean, it's actually works or anything, but I think it's a step in the right direction. Whether they really do care, I don't know, but they're showing that they are trying. But I don't know, Scott. It's every week we come on and we could talk about the same thing over and over because nothing is really changing. In fact, things are getting worse in some situations. More people are ending their lives because they cannot solve these problems. And I just don't know where it could change. What has the only way it can change, first of all, is by talking about it like we are and making people aware. So anybody out there, just share the videos. And we are gonna, Scott, we're gonna start. So StreamYard is where we are right now, what we're live on. StreamYard implemented new tools that are very helpful for people like you and I, that our show does not have a Friday 7:00 time slot anymore because of my schedule and stuff. But I'm able to replay this with a click of a button on all things, and it'll just say pre-recorded live. I used to have to go back and do that, and I had to be there, like to start it and to end it. Now I could replay this at 1 a.m. in the morning while I'm sleeping, and it'll just start and stop when it's over and replay it on all our platforms. So I'm going to start doing that I think I'm going to replay like 7 times at different times and just let's see who grabs onto it. But what we need people to do is they can go over to Apple Podcast. They could find it there, the audio version of this. And it does very well there. People seem to like the audio. The video, just by sharing it, sharing our messages, sharing our, if you want to be a guest on the show, we're always looking for guests. That's people with any issues that they're dealing with, really anybody that wants to come on, because quite honestly, everybody has a story to tell. Everybody has mental health issues, either in their family, something they've overcome, a person they know that overcome, or expertise in a certain subject. But those are all things we're interested in. Like last week we had our friend Melissa Water on, and she was a good guest because she's one of these people that is afflicted by these. I hate using the word afflicted. I don't think she likes that word either. What is the right word? See, that's another problem. But you understand what I mean. She actually has mental health issues and Tourette's syndrome, but she talks about it, and nobody's going to learn about it unless the people are talking about it. So even if you're homeless, people tend to have cell phones now. Isn't that pretty common in the homeless community?
Well, the problem with cell phones with people that don't have a source of income, sometimes the phone becomes a tool to get financial gain. So yes, there are generally ways for them to get access to a phone, but it's very limited. It's you can call 911 or you can make local phone calls, but it's one of those kind of things that when somebody steps up, a charity, and gets phones, they have a limited supply. But if you don't have one, someone sitting next to you does. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's always a way to get it. And I think I hope somebody one day calls us and goes, "Hey, I've got a solution. I can't wait to hear." The meantime, though, while that happens, or while we're waiting for that to happen, just know you're not alone. Know that there's help out there. Know that there's hope, and know that whatever you're going through, you're probably not the first one that's gone through it. Secondly, that there are ways to get out of yourself if you're willing to ask for help. Now, if you don't know how to ask for help, talk to somebody on one of the hotlines or a crisis hotline, or just go to a phone and dial, 911 if you're in a place where you don't know what to do, or you're disoriented, or you're scared, or you just feel like you don't want to do what you're doing anymore. That's what 911, at least one of the numbers, is for. And then there's a 211 in almost every major community. You can make that phone call. They're usually staffed 24/7 as well. So, 10 years ago, these resources to navigate to get to them took a lot of work. Today, they're out there. And,
Right.
most people I've ever met who are living outside, they're generally in groups, and there's ways to help each other in groups. But if you're alone, and, you're probably not hearing this, but if you're in a group and you see people that are alone, you know how to do that. I mean, if you're surviving on the streets, you've got some great skills. And if you're surviving on the streets with some great skills, you can be a mentor to somebody else. But there are some people out there who really are completely and 100% impaired and need a higher level of care and support, and they've got to be vetted, but they got to come in. They got to ask for help. They've got to raise their hand. They've got to have someone bring them in. And, at the end of the day, if each one of us helps someone, we will get to a much better place than we're at today. A much
Right.
better place.
And you also give your phone number if anybody wants to reach out to you, correct?
Yeah. And, I want people to call, 619 993 2738. 619 993 2738. Call me, text me. We'll have a conversation. We'll figure out what we need to figure out, and we'll come up with an idea, a solution, a suggestion, a way to navigate, a new path, whatever it takes. But you don't have to live life alone. And in today's world, I don't care who you are, doing life alone is really complicated, and you shouldn't have to, and you don't have to, and I want to listen to some of these people, at the legislative level of the highest, working in the White House. Let's use Fauci, for example, almost daily saying, why aren't people getting vaccinated? All the science shows, and I understand there's political issues and people don't trust the government, but it's like, if you had 104 fever and somebody offered you an antibiotic to bring the fever down, would you not take it? So yeah. I don't know how to, and it's not my role to try to convince people to create change. My role is to try to inform people that change is possible. But you know what? If you're doing everything the way you think you need to, and life's going the way you want it to go, by all means, change nothing. But you know what? If that rock in your shoe isn't in there anymore, but you still feel that pain, you might want to ask for help.
Yeah. And it's very important. And it's something that is hard to do, but I think it's getting easier. And I don't know if that comes with age, experience, or just us opening the door and allowing people to ask for help. We're not stigmatizing them. We're not saying, oh, you're not such a tough guy anymore, are you? Like we went through. The doors are open. There's availability out there. There's ways to seek help. There's all kind. I mean, you could learn from the internet all the way down. There's so many opportunities out there that you really don't have a great excuse anymore to not get help if you need it. So I think that's going to be it, Scott, for this week. And I don't know when we're going to be live next week until I get my schedule. But I think we had some good conversation again, and we could do the same conversation probably in next hour if we wanted to, and it would be the same thing because nothing's really changing. The numbers are up. COVID is coming back again, it looks like, with a force. People, you got 50% of them doing this and the other 50% doing that. Everybody's blaming each other, and it's only going to cause more mental strife, which is going to bring addiction back in. I want to mention something to you that maybe you have an answer to. I know Kathy Griffin herself is not a popular human being among Hollywood and all that stuff. I don't understand it. To me, she's still just a human being. Okay, regardless of the situation. There was an article, I think, in the Washington Post where she was talking about, she went under, she had a lung cancer, I believe, and she went for surgery and stuff. And she mentioned something I never was aware of, is how difficult it is for for a recovered addict to go through a major surgery. She underestimated it, she said, how difficult it is when pills are presented to you for pain. So is this something that is a common problem.
You mean as far as accepting the pain medication, knowing that it could breach or it could contaminate your recovery? Yeah, it's a very difficult situation, but I know a lot of people who in recovery who have had to have procedures done because, you get older, you get in an accident, you break something, you have to have oral surgery, or you have to have, body parts worked on. If you take the prescription as the doctor instructs you and you disclose to the doctor that you are a person in recovery and that you're allergic to certain pain medication, i.e. most, it's mood altering, they'll generally work with you and do everything they can to try to facilitate a process that allows you to go through a detox potentially, and or a hand holding process where you can really make sure that you don't overdo it, or your medication management can be monitored very, very closely. So there's ways to work around it, but there are certain triggers. Obviously, if you're going to put fentanyl in your body that's prescribed, especially for high levels of pain, and there are people, and I've heard this, I get criticized not as often as I used to because I bring it up all the time, but there are people who actually have been taking OxyContin for years for their pain. And now they're struggling to get their prescriptions filled because of all the issues that are going on with opioids. So they have an argument, obviously. And, OxyContin was approved for 12 and under minors because, in my opinion, there are times an individual needs to take pain medication prescribed for certain things because there aren't a lot of alternatives. And, there are some non-narcotics that are out there, but it's hard if you're having a major surgery and you're getting cut open and they're giving you Advil. It just sometimes doesn't really do it. Then the people who have been on a certain medication for a long period of time are now being told, well, we can't prescribe it the way we used to. They're not getting an option. I mean, OxyContin was delivered to millions, not tens of millions of people. And right now they can't get the 90-day supply or the 60-day. They got to keep going back to the doctor. And the doctors have to be very careful because the American Medical Association says slow down the scripting. They don't know. People are thinking about bringing marijuana up as an alternative to OxyContin for pain. And there's absolutely no science whatsoever that it will affect the brain in a way that will process and deal with the pain. So now all of a sudden we're going to be, if they get it approved, but it's not FDA approved yet, but there's a lot of conversations about it. And I'm really worried about it because marijuana in its own right is another addictive drug that can cause even more problems for somebody because it's not going to really treat the pain at all, from my opinion, from what I've heard from the experts.
Well, that answers my question, and I think that ends the show. Also, before we go, Scott, tell people about your other show and how they could listen to your happy hour.
Scott H Silverman, my name, happy hour. Just Google it. It's pretty much everywhere. And I interview somebody each week. As a matter of fact, last week, interviewed Congressman Scott Peters here in San Diego. He and I have known each other. Our kids were playing softball together, and we talked about the opioid crisis. We talked about veterans. And he was funny. He said, well, Scott, you need to bring these ideas forward. And I challenged him. I said, Scott, you've got my number. Your staff's got my number. Call me. I'm a subject matter expert. Let me know how I can help you. You know what the problem is. You're on the task force in DC. So each week we record, and then you can download it. You can listen to it. It's all over the place, and Apple and Spotify, and get it on my website, yourcrisiscoach.com, and share the message. And in each week, I try to bring a different expert in. This week, I'm bringing a young lady in who took over a nonprofit for a good friend of hers that overdosed and expired. And then in 2 weeks, I'm going to be interviewing our local district attorney who runs a huge campaign around the opioid issue, because here in San Diego, the overdose rate is up over 400% from a year ago. And I like to think we have pretty smart people here, but unfortunately, counterfeit medication. People don't know what they're taking, making uninformed decisions, and overdosing and dying. It just is crazy. And if you go Google me, Scott H. Silverman, I've got a great video just came up on LinkedIn. I put up on Facebook where the local sheriff, one of our local sheriffs, actually was on a scene, and they used the body cams as a public service announcement where he actually went to a vehicle, was exposed to fentanyl, fell down, overdosed, and was saved by his colleagues. It's really a dramatic video because it's real time overdosing and real time reviving, basically. And they use Narcan, the nasal spray, and they saved his life. So, and it just goes to show, here's an individual trained, blah, 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 got exposed and overdosed just from something airborne, as toxic and as poisonous as fentanyl is. So again, be informed, be careful, be safe, and let's work on education and prevention.
You're right. And remember, if no one has told you they love you today, I love you. That's the end of the show. This is Ending the Stigma with Scott H. Silverman and Fredd Carroll. I will see you soon, Scott. Nice talking to you again.
Peace, brother.
And that's it, everybody. So have a good week. Stay safe, stay sober, stay clean, drive safe, do everything. Put your seatbelt on. Go get your shot. It's not going to hurt. Trust me. Trust your father, Fred. Goodbye.